Hello, welcome to Miles and Margins. Brains. Yeah,
Oh, shoot.
and I'm Kimberly Henry. Sarah Jones is the other part of this party. John Paduchek will be popping in here in a little bit, and we may have one or two others popping in. But for now, we've got a great discussion today, and I'm super excited to kick off episode 2. Sarah, how's it going?
Well, hello, and I'm only laughing because like the effects, or what do they call it? When you're multi-passionate and you've got a lot of different podcasts and a lot of things that you're doing, sometimes the words just don't come out right.
Yes, absolutely. You just have to roll with it, as they say.
For sure, for sure. Which we're good at doing that, being on the road full time. So we're pretty good at that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so if you were just joining us for the first time ever, this is the Miles and Margins podcast. This is our second episode, so we're just really getting this rolling. But we've been talking about this for a couple of years now on other formats and other rooms. And so this is a conversation that we're having consistently, Sarah and I and the rest of the crew. And we just wanted to bring it to this platform so that we could make sure that those who aren't getting this kind of conversation have the opportunity to jump in, which is why we're here.
Yeah. I think it's a lot of people are curious about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is something that people are wanting to know, but they don't really know where to go to get the information. And so we're just bringing it, making it easy to ask the questions or hear more in-depth look at different topics about traveling and building a business or multiples.
Multiples makes me think like twins or something.
Right.
Well, we are a close knit group. We are pretty relaxed and we love to laugh. So this is not a podcast where it's going to be stiff or just dry. We're going to be a little silly and goofy sometimes, but we are serious about our conversation. And we're here to support entrepreneurs who want to be mobile, who want to be nomads, or who are considering it. And today we have a topic that you don't hear a lot about, as Sarah said, in other formats in regards to nomadic entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And that is banking, payments, and invoicing from the road. It's a very specific part of our business. We have to do it, whether we're in a brick and mortar business or working from home or taking the show on the road. So the goal here is to just kind of unpack what it is that we're doing, and love to hear your ideas as well. This is not a bunch of talking heads here. We are open to the conversations. So if you have some great ideas, you can pop them in the comments and we will address them. If not during the broadcast, then definitely after the broadcast in the comments. And we'll try to get as many as we can while we're live. But this is a lot of moving parts and it's not something I do every day. So we're learning right along with you.
And that's so much of what we go through just being on the road is learning, right? I mean, there's not a manual for all of this. And I think, you and I have both been on the road for about the same amount of time, about 4.5, 5 years, somewhere around that time frame. And I think we've done a lot of learning on the road and continue to do so as life changes and business changes and the world changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's get the conversation rolling on the banking and the payments and the invoicing. So we can get right down to the nitty gritty. And the first question that I have is, what business bank are you using and what address did you provide to make that happen?
So we personally use our credit union that we had when we still had our sticks and bricks home.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't change banks when we decided to go on the road, but we are looking to change banks now, interestingly enough. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, our business bank was still our credit union. And the address that we used is the address that we use for our permanent residence as of now.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to say this, but we're using my in-laws' address as our permanent residence right now.
Why do you hate to say that? Curious.
Because it's a little deceptive. I mean, it's a little deceptive.
Can you expand on that?
Because
Inquiring minds want to know.
it's not really our home, right? I mean, it's not our home. We're just using it as an address, using it to for our driver's licenses, but it's not legally. We've never lived there. We're not paying rent there. It's not ours, and so it feels a little deceptive because it's not our home. It's just an address that we're using.
So how would that be different? I'll answer the question too here in a moment. But how would that be different? Because we're in a similar situation actually. We use our daughter's home as our domicile address. That's our legal address. We get our mail there, and we also pay renter's insurance there. So we don't pay rent. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty, but anyway, welcome, John. We're just talking about bank accounts for right now, and so how then, Sarah? Back to my question: is how would using your in-laws' address be different than setting it up like with a mailbox address out of one of the popular domicile states like South Dakota, for example?
So we have that as well.
Okay.
We have that as well. And I think it's different, just in my mind, is that those are set up specifically for this type of situation, and the state recognizes that type of address for a legal residence. Now, not that, my in-laws house isn't a legal residence, it is, but and maybe it's more like integrity for me. It just feels, years ago, people used to use other people's addresses so they didn't have to get emissions on their car, and it just felt deceptive, right? You're doing things to avoid maybe paying taxes or emissions and those types of things. And so for me, it just feels more like an integrity kind of situation. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I think it would be interesting to dive more into that and find out. But I want to go back and I'm going to restate the original question, John, so you can certainly weigh in, and I will answer it as well. The original question was, what exact business bank are you using, and what exact address did you have to provide to open it?
Oh.
So us, we kept our same bank because it was a national bank. So we kept our same bank when we went full time. We moved we changed our address to our daughter's house because that became our legal domicile. And so that was that. There was no big deal around it. However, what happened to us is it was nice to be with a national bank because it was easy to go and do transactions all over the country. However, we had a case of identity theft a few years in, and dealing with identity theft with a big national bank is not so nice. It's not so nice. And so we actually ended up switching to a local community bank where our domicile is, and we use that. And it's not as convenient, I have to say, for like getting cash out of the bank or making some deposits. So that's not as convenient, but the customer service is so much better for for both our business and personal accounts. We use the same bank for both our business and personal accounts. So that's kind of what we do. It wasn't really an issue. I don't know if it's an issue for folks who are using a service like a mailing service as their domicile. That's a good question. John, do you have any thoughts around that? I know you were not in the same quite situation.
No, but I prepared for that situation. So,
yeah.
So we ended up, we have a local credit union we've done business with for years. We also had an identity theft issue, which it seems to be more and more prevalent. I know even my business partner just recently had one where he went to call one of the major banks and somebody different picked up. Somehow the line was shifted over and he was making a direct call to the bank. It was pretty strange. So the scammers are getting more and more tricky. So we use a local credit union, and then both of our parents were veterans, so we use Navy Federal, and they're in most of the states that we were interested in traveling to. And then we also have a business bank, Relay Financial. And so we did that just because they were really easy to get wire transfers to. They take, you can produce an invoice from them and get paid through invoices direct to the bank. And they're actually more reasonable than, credit cards. And then Stripe and PayPal, obviously, go pretty much directly to any bank. So that wasn't really an issue either.
Right.
So
your bank provides an invoicing service?
They do. So Relay Financial provides an invoicing service. And I think one of the other popular business banks, Mercury, I think they might do the same thing. They seem to have a lot of the same features. Yeah.
I have not run into that.
And the other thing that's good with Mercury, if you use AI and a lot of those things, you can actually get cloud credits and things having an account with Mercury, which is important to me because I do a lot of AI work for business.
We're going to have to get the deets on that and put those in the show notes for sure. I'm going to need that. Yeah. So speaking of invoicing, what are you guys using for invoicing to be consistent?
We just invoice right straight through the bank. We
you
just,
do.
Yeah. And so everything comes up. And now that our own company has its own accounting package, everything comes directly into accounting through Plaid. And so it comes in from all of our banks. And just, we have a lovely young lady who goes through all of our invoices for us and sets them all up, make sure everything's all straightened nicely for tax time. Yeah.
Sarah, how about you? What are you using for invoicing client transactions and stuff?
So everything's run through my Go High Level CRM. So that way I can keep track of payments and subscriptions and, invoicing all with each individual client and automations and everything through there, which is hooked up to a Stripe account. And it's also hooked up to the regular business bank account. And so it's invoiced, payment is kept track individually in both GHL and Stripe, because Stripe does keep track of that as well. And then payments are automatically deposited into my bank business account.
We do that. We did too with Go High Level.
Yeah, same here. We do the same.
Yeah, lots of payment options.
High Level, Stripe, and our bank account are all in that chain. So that makes it nice that you can find a solution that works so well together, integrates so well together. I think QuickBooks also offers invoicing, a similar setup if you're using that for your bookkeeping. My husband has an art business, and he does his invoicing still by hand.
Really?
So, yes, he sure does. He sure does. Which there's something to be said for it. It's never going to get lost in the cloud.
Mm-mm.
Right.
There is something to say, right?
We do get then payment via check from his clients, so that we have to track that down. But then the upside of that is there's no fee involved. There's no like a Stripe fee or a PayPal fee or
Right.
card fee involved in that. So I don't know if the hassle is worth the savings or not. We're about ready to dive in and
I think there are some options with like Stripe specifically. You can create, although they do charge you for creating invoices in Stripe now, but you can have the option for like an ACH transfer. And so their fees are much lower than versus using a credit or debit card purchase. And so, I think that's what's nice, Kimberly, is that there's so many options. I think it just depends on who you are, what your needs are, what really works for you. And, when I'm working with a lot of clients, a lot of times we look for ways that they are saving as much as possible on invoicing fees, and payment fees, because that's a bleed for your business, right? If you're not aware of it. And so I think it's just important to know what works for you. And if you're waiting and you're okay with, sending out those manual invoices and waiting for the check to come in, I think it's a fun thing to, it can be fun and beneficial to your business as well.
It's sure great to get a check in the mail for a change, right?
Right.
Have you guys tried things that don't work? Payment processing systems that don't work, or invoicing systems that didn't work?
I've been with Stripe pretty much since the beginning. I've played around with different options with Stripe. And in the beginning, it worked really well because I was grandfathered in. So when I started, they didn't charge you for invoices. So I was not paying those fees, and I did everything ACH transfer. So again, I was paying very small, minimal fees. But I mean, I can't think of anything that really didn't work. I think just as business has evolved, and then with the addition of Go High Level, having everything attached to each customer and client has been really nice. But
yes,
I can't think of something that didn't necessarily work.
No, I was going to say too, I can't think of anything that didn't necessarily work, but you reminded me of something, Sarah, and that is that there's a membership. I buy a lot of software, obviously, for a lot of stuff that I do. And there's one of the memberships that I belong to that, I learned about the Mercury thing from, and they give you, oh my gosh, I think I figured it would be like 3 years worth of Stripe fees for free. So subtract them off. I mean, it is a membership, so you do pay for the membership, but it more than made up for the 3 years of Stripe fees. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah,
those are things to look for. I think there's always deals to look for when you're shopping around software. But I also caution for myself to not be so locked into looking for deals that you aren't getting the end product you need for the task that you need to do. Yeah, that's challenging sometimes. Because there's some sweet deals.
There are.
Yeah, I mean, even to along that point, I think it's really about looking at what are the needs of your business right now, right? And you don't necessarily need something super complicated either, right? Like there are, just because somebody else is using some platform doesn't mean it's going to necessarily be the right one for you right now. There's nothing wrong with getting started with something, right, that fits your needs currently. And then as you grow, you can change platforms and I was going to say upgrade. Sometimes it's not necessarily an upgrade. It's just a change depending on what your business needs are.
Yeah. All right. How do you guys handle your mail when it comes to receiving checks or bills or financial transactions in the mail? How are you doing that? How are you streamlining that?
We receive very few checks or payments in the mail, but we use either our domicile address, so my in-laws address, or we do have the mail service as well. So payments can go there, and then we just request from each of those locations, request it to be sent to us wherever we're at.
I have set it up quite nicely with my daughter and my granddaughter now. I'm actually paying her like $25 a month, my granddaughter, to keep track of my mail because the family would get the mail and they would kind of disperse it all over the house. And then I get, so the U.S. Postal Service, if you don't know, this is a good tip. If you don't know, with the U.S. Postal Service, you can go online to USPS.com and you can set it up where they will email you every day and show you a picture of the mail that is being delivered to your address. So every mail piece, typically, occasionally there'll be one where they say we can't get a good picture of this for whatever reason. But for the most part, I get that email and I can see what's coming in. And yes, I can see what mail they're getting, but more importantly, I can keep my eye out for anything important to us. And so then I will make a note of it and make sure they find that and keep, all of our mail together. And if it's a check, then I'll actually have them take a picture of it, send it to me. So I have that. And then they have the ability to deposit those for me since it's a local bank. So that's one way we do that. But because you can do the mail service as you do, Sarah, and that's going to be about $20, $30 a month. So I figured I would just pay my granddaughter and she could do that.
Good idea.
Yeah, it's worked out so far. 5 years in running now. Yeah.
I have my son who doesn't travel with us, so he just goes and grabs a mail. It works out well.
How does it work for you, Sarah, with the mail service?
We just request mail when we think we've got stuff there. They let us know, if there's mail sitting there. We have most of our important stuff go to my in-laws' house. And I just wanted to say for the people that are interested, I think it's called Informed Delivery through the USPS. Yes. I think is the program, just in case people are looking for that Informed Delivery. But yeah, so we kind of know what's going, to the mailbox service, what is going to our in-laws. We're actually in the process of switching everything over to the mail service. So.
Isn't it interesting just how so much has changed? It's kind of a requirement now to be in touch, be available virtually and at a moment's notice for so many things now because you're kind of expected to. So having a mail service or a person that can be on top of that for you is pretty amazing. And an important component in your business because people expect if they send something to you, you're going to get it and you're going to act on it. Right?
Yeah. And with, some of the mail services, depending on what one you use and what tier you sign up for, some of them will open your mail for you. They'll get rid of the junk mail. They will open and scan, your mail each day or each week. And so, you've got a log of what's there. So that's kind of handy too. Some of them have attorneys that are available. So if you need, signatures, you can sign, power of attorney forms, right? And they can handle a lot of your stuff for you, which is pretty darn handy when you're on the road.
Okay, I've got another question. This takes us back to bank accounts. And Sarah, I think this is going to be right up your alley. So it's a two-part question. First part is, do you consolidate your personal and business banking? I think we all know the answer to this one, but I think it's an important conversation to have because not everybody does. And then the second part is, do you keep them at separate institutions just in case one gets flagged for fraudulent or suspicious travel activity? I've not thought to do that. That's interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
So your business and your personal should absolutely be in different accounts. You should never, ever, ever, ever mix business and personal transactions. Let me just say that a little bit louder for the people in the back. Please never, ever mix them. So yes, keep your accounts separate. We keep our business and personal accounts at the same institution because they're different account numbers. They're different account names. So if one has fraudulent charges, they're not connected to the other one. You know, they're open. One's open personal with Social Security. The other ones are open with your EIN number, you know, for business. So there should be no connection there unless the bank has done something that released, you know, had some kind of fraud happen on their end. So those are we use a credit card for all of our personal transactions each month, and then just make one payment and pay it off. So that way, if we do have some fraud, it is much easier to work with a credit card company than it is debit card, even with a small bank. So that's what we choose. But separate accounts, same institution.
Yeah, same here. But I do, I mean, that does kind of raise my antenna about maybe having separate institutions. Now, I do have also a couple of different credit cards from different banks. So I think we're covered, but that's an interesting thought. Something to maybe put into the business plan conversation or the business checkup conversation.
Yeah, we ended up doing separate banks specifically because of that. We use small amounts from some accounts on our debit cards to kind of make sure nobody can fraudulently get into those things. But that being said, one of our credit unions, we went through 19 debit cards in a year, which is not great. And so that got us starting to use Apple Pay and Google Pay a lot more. So, and we haven't had that issue since.
Well, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, I always look at, you know, I want people to have their finances be as simple as possible as well. And so, you know, I think this is a worthy conversation to have, that, you know, managing different accounts, but at different banks, does that add more a level of complexity on? It may or may not, right? Just depending. But being aware, you know, I think in that situation, John, I would be leaving that bank. Like, you know, if that was the problem, I would be leaving that bank. Otherwise, you know, you got to work on your own security there, my friend, because you're having that kind of fraud happening.
we ended up doing some very specific things to curtail that. And then we ended up switching the majority of our business to another bank. So we literally use them because they're very, very quick with deposits, and some banks are slowing down on that. So we deposit and then like immediately transfer it someplace else. So we just use them almost as our depositing station, but use them for almost nothing else.
Kind of like a
clearing. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Moving on. So this is about cash flow for your business. And that is variable expenses are a reality on the road. You might spend more one month than the next for internet, for networking, for whatever. How do you structure your cash flow or your savings buffers to ensure you can always cover your business expenses even during a slow month? So I think the first question actually is, how does being a nomad affect your cash flow or your revenue flow?
For me, my expenses are, well, this could be a really long answer to,
Yeah.
that there's a lot of nuance with your question. And so I'll just speak real quick on my perspective of it. That revenue is going to change no matter if you're a nomad or not. There's always going to be ups and downs with revenue with your business. There's always going to be ups and downs with expenses with your business, whether you're a nomad or not. Think of like realtors, right? They might sell 2 houses in 1 month and might go 6 months without a sale. So that's a huge, right? So nomad or not, the reality of, highs and lows with income and highs and lows with cash flow are a real thing. Secondly, I use a system with my clients and I call it the surviving to thriving method. And I won't go super deep into that, but it accounts for the higher revenue months to make sure that we're protecting the business, the income, the cash flow for the lower revenue months. So I think it is really the system that you're using is really important. If you're spending everything that's coming in each month, you're going to put yourself, which a lot of people do, they really put themselves at a disadvantage for the lower revenue months. And, they say lifestyle creep in business is a thing as well. You start making more, you start spending more, and you're not planning ahead for the lower revenue months. So that's my real quick answer to those questions.
So it's really about, and my camera just for some reason decided to take a break. So here we are. But what I'm hearing you say, Sarah, is annualizing your cash flow, annualizing your revenue flow. So
yeah, I go more quarterly. And it just, each business is a little bit separate, but we hold percentages back from all income, all revenue coming in. We've got it split up to cover each different category in business. So a percentage of all revenues coming in gets held back and accounted for. So on the higher revenue months, that same percentage, you're holding back more. So then the lower revenue months, right, you've built in that cushion in all of your accounts. So you're still paying yourself consistently and predictably each month. You still have the funds setting aside for all of your operating expenses. You're still covering all your taxes. You're still, all the things, you're really protecting yourself.
Yeah. I think this really circles us back to the conversation about separating business and personal, because really it's your living expenses primarily that are going to fluctuate when you are a nomad. You might stay in a hostel 1 month. You might do a work camping situation the next month. You might pay for a high-end resort another month. So that to me seems like where it would be really tempting for someone to cross finances as a nomad.
Yeah. And I think just in my experience, people do it because they don't really understand money, and they don't really understand, even though they're told they need separate accounts, they don't really understand why. And business is paying for personal in a lot of cases, right? And so people just attribute it like, oh, I'm quote unquote, I'm making money. And really the business is making money and you're being paid from the business. That's a different mindset that a lot of people don't think about. They just assume, oh, the check is coming in my name or the business name. I'm the owner of the business, so it's my money. And that's not the case. It's the business revenue. It's not your personal. And so the point of having them separated is learning that this is business and personal. They're just separate entities. They're separate lives. They cover and are responsible for different things.
And the IRS does pay attention. They do care.
They do.
Yeah, they absolutely do. Yep.
Yes. Totally do. So we actually have a little bit of a special situation for this, because some of the business we get doesn't get paid out for 30 to 45 days, sometimes even a little longer. So internally in our company, we do lines and loans. So originally when you start out, you take a line and then you use it to pay your bills for that particular month, and you keep the other half to create a bank for yourself. So you never have to borrow any money again. You'll always have money separately in like your own bank.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very different way of kind of structuring things business wise, that most people don't do that.
Mm-hmm. And there is, of course, always a line of credit option that, there's all kinds of financing options and things like that, that if you can do it responsibly, can be beneficial to your business.
Exactly.
It's just another tool, right? There's a lot of tools out there, a lot of them that can be used in a really great way. Most people, in my experience, don't really know how to use them, so it's beneficial, and that's where trouble comes in. But there's a lot of tools available.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I've seen a lot of, like you have, the ones who've run into trouble, who've taken the line and didn't do what they're supposed to do with it, and just like spent it all on something and didn't do the other side of it, which was create their own nest egg to have for the next business transaction.
So we're at the tail end, towards the tail end of our broadcast, and banking, payments, and invoicing is the topic. Is there something that sticks out in your mind that we haven't circled around to that is an important part of this conversation?
I think for me, it's a reminder that knowing your money and having a good system in place is, I would say, arguably more important than any other piece, because if you're bringing in, you're focusing on more revenue, you're chasing that revenue if you don't have a good system in place. And so knowing how your banking interacts, knowing how your payments are coming in, like John, you mentioned, sometimes the net is 30, 45 days, 90 days, lead time on some payments. Knowing how that affects you is critical to the financial health and financial sustainability of your business. And so I would just argue that having a good system from the get-go, or if you're there now, creating or getting with somebody that can help you implement a really good system, is going to just be such a lifesaver when you start focusing on all the marketing, when you start focusing on more of the lead gen, when you start focusing on, creating more revenue. Having a system is the basis. That's the foundation for everything else to build on. So,
yes.
That's so challenging, I think, for a lot of folks who are entrepreneurs, or maybe it's their first ever foray into building or creating a business or a sole proprietorship. And a sole proprietorship, my friends, is a business. Just want to say that it is a business, and you need to treat it like one. And I think we all just want to, that's a generalization. It's maybe not fair, but I have been there, and I've known others who have been there, where you just want to do the thing. Maybe you're a plumber and you just want to be a plumber. You don't want to get into all the bookkeeping and all the business planning and all of that. It's not important. If my people will pay me, and I will put it in my bank, and then I will spend it, right? So this is a hard conversation for a lot of people. Where was I circling back to? I guess you mentioned, Sarah, that you should have somebody. If you're not that person, then have somebody who is that person for your business. Who should that person be, do you guys think? Should it be a bookkeeper, a CPA, your mother-in-law? Who is the person if it's not you?
That's a very nuanced question, because it really depends on each business situation. If you're selling loaves of sourdough, 3 loaves a day out of your home, you yourself can manage the money yourself. You don't need to be paying a bookkeeper for that. That's a bleed for your business, right? But I think it's important that you understand then how to use those dollars, how to implement a system, right? What tools do you need to use to make you the most successful that you can be made? If you are a business and you're making, multiple 7 figures a year and you've got employees, then knowing how the cash flow runs through, that's your job as a business owner, but then you hire support. So that can be a coach, it can be a bookkeeper, it can be a CPA, it can be an attorney, it can be all of those, or one, or,
right.
It's a nuanced answer. because every situation is a little bit different. But does everybody need a bookkeeper? Absolutely not. And people spend a lot of money on bookkeepers that they don't need to hire. Money isn't complicated. It really isn't. It's actually a very simple process when you understand it. When you understand it.
John, what do you think the cutoff is from selling a few loaves of sourdough to when you need to get more serious about your money?
About 250,000 annual income.
Okay.
So it's actually quite a high target. So most people, that's where it really sets in. That's when they switch from an LLC to becoming an S corp, typically. And I'm fortunate, really. We do all of those things within our company. So I just let them take care of my books, let them take care of everything. So
nice.
Some people aren't fortunate, but we do that for other people. So
yeah, I would put the bar lower than that. I mean, I appreciate your response, and I think 250 is probably a good spot where you're up leveling to a different level, right?
Yeah.
But I would really think that if you are if you're relying on that income, it's important to manage it. So even if it's only $500 a month in revenue, you need to figure out what you're doing with that $500 a month. Are you using it to grow your business? Are you using it to pay your child care bill or whatever? And I would think that if it gets into the six-figure range, you're probably going to want to have a CPA or a bookkeeper in your pocket. Not necessarily somebody you pay every month, but somebody you can reach out to if you need.
Yeah.
I think, there's a distinction between, what a traditional bookkeeper does versus what a CPA does. And I think I just see businesses hiring bookkeepers before they really need to, when they could be saving that money, because a bookkeeper is traditionally a monthly expense that people most of the time don't need to be spending. A CPA, I think whether they're doing your estimated quarterlies, they're handling payroll, or they're just filing once a year, again, that's going to depend on what your business needs are. And I think it's always wise to have somebody there. But I would also argue that it depends on what type of business you have.
Sure.
Yeah.
You could have very little overhead, very few expenses, and be making, multiple six figures, right? That
let's go into that business, all of us.
I'm in that business.
Tons of revenue. That's the business, right?
That's why I started with the 250,000 figure, because the companies we work with are about 250,000 to 6 million.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So if you do have a larger business, there's that strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're managing employees, whether they're independent contractors or payroll, that's another maybe benchmark where you need to say, okay, am I handling this correctly, or should I have somebody come in and set this up for me, or figure out what your process is, because that's not just your life, that's your employees' lives.
And along those lines, Kimberly, I think it just speaks to, the type of business that you have and what your role as the owner is. Are you responsible for the majority? So sometimes it becomes more cost effective for you to, outsource some of these roles if you are the lead revenue generator in your business, right? Or if you're not, maybe handling the books and doing some of this is your role because you've got other people. So that's why I say it's so nuanced. But there's so many options, right? I mean, the key is just talking with somebody and figuring out, okay, where are you at? What's going on? What needs to happen? What do you not feel comfortable with? And what's not working for you right now to pinpoint what needs to change.
Absolutely. So if a new nomad wanted to jump into business right now, or an experienced entrepreneur wanted to jump into nomad life, what advice would you give them regarding this topic?
Yeah.
Because we all have the list, right? Don't do it.
Well, I think everybody's going to have different. That's kind of a hard question because everybody's going to have different intricacies to their business, and so it's kind of important to first walk through it with somebody who understands what they're facing, what they're going to be going through, and then you can kind of judge and make decisions from there. There's not really a one answer fits all scenario.
No.
So no.
It very rarely is, right?
It very rarely is. So I would just say, find somebody who really knows what they're doing, like Sarah or me or, somebody along that line, and walk through, what you need to have done. I did that recently with my RV mechanic. He came over the other day. He heard me on the phone talking to somebody about all these different things. And he goes, hey, can you help me to turn my business around and make it a real business so I'm not working 100 million hours a day and having people drive me to my jobs because I didn't get a chance to sleep last night. So those are real issues, and they need to be walked through on a one-by-one basis kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think similar. I would just say, if somebody is an RVer, nomad, and they want to start a business, I'm always going to say, go and get start your business the right way, get the proper paperwork, open up your own bank accounts from the very get-go. Don't wait until that first payment comes in. Just go and do it right away. Yeah. If somebody is, already traveling and, I mean, there's, again, so many nuances, but I think if you've been a business owner and you go on the road, my experience has been, it has been more challenging to build business on the road because my community has changed drastically. Mm-hmm. And there's been this real play between vacation mode, exploring where you're at, having a good time at the new locations.
Yeah.
And still putting effort and the same dedication and time into building business. And so, just know that your life is going to change no matter what you do, and you're never going to be fully prepared for it. But like John said, I think just having a conversation with somebody who is experienced in the area that you're looking at, talk with one of us, right? I mean, we all three of us have experience in all of these areas and can provide a tremendous amount of support.
Mm-hmm. I think it's, recognizing where is your knowledge gap. That's what I would say is, what is your knowledge gap? Are you already in the widget business and you just want to take the widget business on the road? Then we need to talk about what are the things that need to change in the business because of being nomadic. Yeah. If you are already nomadic and you want to start a business, that's a different conversation. Mm-hmm. And what are your knowledge gaps there? Have you ever had a business before? What do you need? What do you need to know? Where are we starting from? So I guess my simple answer is take stock of your present situation and your goal and what's the gap between the two. And find the people. There's people in this group who can help, but there's people all over the place that can help. If you just know, if you go to the Small Business Administration, I know in Colorado they have free services for brand new entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs who have been in business for a long time. Talk to somebody who's running a business on the road if that's your gap, and find out what you can learn from them. I think conversations is huge. Just finding a trusted group that you can ask questions of is huge.
Yes,
absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for participating. This is fun. Next month in August, we will be tackling the topic of this is John, this is your wheelhouse.
Oh, totally.
Legal and financial. We're going to be talking LLCs, S corp, sole proprietor, what it means, what makes sense for your business, and what makes sense for being on the road. So we'll dive into that, and that one's a fun conversation because
you're gonna learn a lot next time.
There's a lot to dive into there. And as always, ask your questions in the chat. If you're watching the replay, please let us know. And if you have suggestions or comments on anything that we shared today, we don't know everything. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're here to just share our experiences and have the conversation. I think that's really what this is about, is having the conversation. So feel free to jump in the chat and ask away, share resources, share tips. Let us know what you think, or even suggest further future topics. But we will see you guys back here in a month.
All right.
Happy
Bye for now.
All right.